An entrepreneur for me is someone who takes risks to create something out of nothing. I think it's actually something that's inbuilt within us all. We have a creativity and an innovation, an ability to create and produce. And I think that spirit of enterprise, as I call it, is actually within every single one of us. Are we an agent or are we a victim? Victims accept there's no doors of opportunity for me at the moment, or they're not happening fast enough, or I'm employed and this is all I'm limited to. But agents say, actually, I am the agent of my own destiny. I can make choices every day which change and transform my prospects and the prospects of the people around me. A few years ago, my mum gave me a pair of shoes, and I opened the box, and they were little, small, tiny shoes. And I took them out of the box, and one of them had a hole in the toe of the shoe where the child had kind of been learning to walk and scuffed the end so much that there's a hole in it. And then she said, Matt, those were the pair of shoes you learned to walk in.
Okay.
And I have them on my studio desk, and they sit there. And I often look at them, and it just reminds me, and I wish I'd learned this earlier, that
So that was the inspiring, brilliant Matt Bird, who you're going to hear more about his dream and his story later today on the Someday Arrival podcast. Welcome again to the Someday Arrival podcast. Whether you are new here or a new leader or a more seasoned, experienced leader, hopefully you're going to hear something that's going to help you to change lives, make a difference where you are, or even globally, and reach your own dream destination. I'm Darren Richards. As ever, I'm here with my co-host, Jyoti Patel, who today is she's in the South Pole in a sub-zero substation. Is that right, Jyoti?
Not quite. I'm on the East Coast, but same. So today we're joined by the wonderful Matt Bird. Matt, you're a man of many leadership talents and ventures, a serial entrepreneur, a global speaker, a broadcaster, author of, I don't know how many books, you'll have to help me out with that one. I think I've lost count. And I also know that, the written word was not always your comfortable home. So why don't you walk us through where you're at right now?
Oh, well, I'm in London, but when I'm not in London, I'm often to be found in Noto, on the island of Sicily in Italy, which is actually where I'll be next week. I love the sunshine, but I also love London. So I try and get the best of both worlds. The London vibe and London energy and culture, and the sunshine and the beaches and the food of southern Italy.
That beats New York. You win. I was curious.
How many books are you up to now, Matt?
I stopped counting at 20 books, Darren.
Of course you did. As did we all. As do we all.
I think if you carry on counting after 20, you're just trying to show off.
Well, also, Matt, you're not just all the things that I mentioned, but you've been really successful at founding charities in both the volunteer sector, the business world, as founder and CEO of enterprises like PublishU and NAYBA, spelled NAYBA. Tell us about that.
I decided to change my name, not my name, not Matt Bird. But I think what we call ourselves really matters. And necessity is the mother of invention, isn't she? And in the pandemic, like many people, I was faced with necessity, and that made me extra inventive. And in the lockdown, I decided to accept the fact that I am an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur for me is someone who takes risks to create something out of nothing. And I decided for the first time in my life to own the name. Up until that point, I'd resisted using the name because I always thought entrepreneurs are people that had built big things and made lots of money. Now, I've built some modest things and made modest amounts of money, but never at the scale I thought I should have done to call myself an entrepreneur. But you know what? I faced up to the fact and said, actually, even when I was at school, I exhibited entrepreneurial traits and habits, and that's who I am.
And that is who you are. You're doing wonderful things by the sounds of it. And I would say, what was your someday dream? But it sounds like you're actually living it. So paint a picture for us of the dream. How did you get there?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I've only had one job in my entire life. I'm actually now completely unemployable. I've always developed portfolio of things I'm passionate about. And I'm in that fortunate place where I'm my own boss. I create my own opportunities. As a younger guy, I was always frustrated that opportunities didn't come to me fast enough. So early on, I gave up pursuing opportunities, and I decided I would make my own opportunities. And I adopted the little motto, if the door of opportunity isn't knocking, make a door. And so I spent my life, Rotti, creating doors of opportunity.
No, I love that because I can relate to that. If the door doesn't open, or if there is no door, make one. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was at school, I remember, my taking a packed lunch as you did when you're a small kid. And I always resented the fact that my packed lunch didn't contain a packet of crisps because my mum said we couldn't afford them and they were too indulgent. And by the way, they weren't very good for you. But my dad worked for a large confectionery company. So we always went to school in our packed lunch with a chocolate bar. And I remember one day, a guy leaning across, looking at my packed lunch and saying, "Can I buy your chocolate bar off you?" And that was my first entrepreneurial moment. I said yes. And the guy who bought the chocolate bar happened to be the most popular boy in class. So whatever he did, everybody else wanted to do. So it wasn't long before I was taking a whole box of chocolate bars to school every day, selling them in 5 minutes out of my lunchbox, making more money than the kids do who went out for an early morning paper around every morning. That's where my entrepreneurialness actually began.
Yeah, so you're just one of these people, Matt, who you see the business opportunity wherever you go. I remember you set up a company just in lockdown, from literally out of nothing. You just made it happen. I'd love to hear a little bit about that actually.
Yeah, well, I started, having decided I am an entrepreneur, I started 3 ventures in lockdown. And one of them was I love food and wine, and all the lovely restaurants I love going to were all closed. So I decided, why not? If you can't go to the restaurant, bring the restaurant to you. So I partnered with top restaurants across London, and we created luxury hampers, not a brown box full of the ingredients to make something. I know that was done, but we would create luxury, world-class hampers with 3 half bottles of wine, which we chose with the sommelier, and then work with the chef to pair 3 eat treats, as I called them, one that paired with each bottle of wine. And then we shipped those on the day to our guests. And then I hosted a live online show with the chef and the sommelier tasting the wine and food from their restaurant. So it was a lot of fun. I call it my lockdown business, Darren.
It actually brings me on to my next question, because I know at least on one of those days, things didn't quite go to plan. So as an entrepreneur, you've recognized you're an entrepreneur. You are a professional problem solver. It's on you. It's on your shoulders. When you go to bed at night, you've either made the money, you've made it work, or you haven't. I'd love to hear that story, and then other stories of when things haven't quite gone to plan and you've had to just get on with it.
Well, every day, Darren, every day things don't go according to plan. That's the life, isn't it? So I think the occasion you were referring to, we had hundreds of people join us on rebottling. I think our largest audience was 500 people at a live online tasting. So we had hundreds of hampers we would have delivered across the UK, 1 or 2 snuck in from around the world as well. But I think the occasion you were referring to, Darren, was the day the couriers didn't turn up.
And you shoot these things on the day, right? Everything is lined up to the moment. It's a just-in-time business.
Yeah. So what did we do? Well, I hit the phones. I phoned friends, I phoned investors, I phoned board members, I phoned customers that I knew and said to them, our couriers haven't turned up. Do you fancy popping over to the cellars and picking up a few hampers and driving around the UK and delivering them? And that's exactly what happened. People drove to the cellars, they loaded up their boots with hampers and delivered them. And it just made that particular event so energetic.
I would literally, I mean, we just had some gremlins in the machine just now with the technology, but to think 500 people are waiting, not just for this wine and this food, but for me to be on, and you've got to tell the nation, as it were, sorry, your stuff didn't turn up, and you just were like, no, we fix it, we solve it. What takes someone, from a schoolboy selling chocolate to, well, I can just set up a business. I can just ship out wine in a gift box. I can write 20 books. Like, where do you get that inner resilience and belief? A lot of people maybe look at you and think, I could never be like Matt. I just don't have the self-confidence or the skills. Where do you find that inner something extra?
It starts in your attitude. You can't, lots of people are employed and gets to 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and wherever the business is at, they down tools and go home.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's not their business. When it's your business, It doesn't matter what the time is. If there's something that needs to be fixed, you stay and fix it. Yeah. So you own it. You own the opportunities, you own the benefits, but you also own the challenges that are thrown your way, and you have to make it work.
That's,
Yeah.
I believe you. And what about you see, you go on Instagram or something and you get these people who get up at 3:30 in the morning and they go for their marathon, then they have the ice bath. Do you do all that? Is that how you start your day? Do you have to do the ice bath and the marathon and the meditation? Do you have any habits that sustain you day after day with these
Yeah,
challenges and
well,
stress, daily stress?
yeah, I do have I do have daily habits, and I'm an early riser, but not that early. I'm up by 6. And there's stuff I do before I start work at 7, and I'm on with my day. I like to actually not be at my desk for too long because I'm not a desk dweller. I hate being at a laptop and sat at a desk. It's not the place I want to be.
Mm,
So I try and build pattern and rhythm into my day. So you'll rarely catch me on a Zoom after lunch. I don't do Zooms after lunch. There are one or two exceptions,
Hmm.
uh, but generally I don't schedule meetings after lunch. That's one of my principles. Once a month, I go to Noto on the island of Sicily, Italy, and I work that week, but I work at a different pace. That
Hmm.
also helps put some rhythm and pace into my life. I love the energy and the vibe of London's West End,
mm,
but I also love the get nothing done in a hurry
mm,
culture of Sicily.
mm.
And I love them both. They're contrasting. So I think for us all, we need to build texture into our lives, and when we live life at a different pace, it can give us a different perspective.
That entrepreneur life can become a road to burnout as well. You have to learn, as you said, there's no check in, check out, stamp out time. You have to impose those routines, those disciplines, that space for yourself just to enjoy what it is you're building.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't struggle too much with that because I enjoy having a good time. I love traveling. I love meals with friends. I love, walking on the beach every day when I'm in Sicily. I love all those things. But and I think for us all, we need to be able to work hard and play hard. That's always been my style.
And I agree with you on that. I think that the pandemic especially changed that rhythm and that pacing. And I think you have the best of two different worlds, which is amazing for anyone who can accomplish that. It's so easy to get caught up in the daily grind, but having that time in Noto, I can imagine, must give you such a relief and just a bit of a breather to recalibrate and reset.
Yeah, yes,
I feel
exactly.
it. Just talking about it, it sounds
You
great.
sit there in the sunshine. I mean, the next week it's not going to be hot, but it'll be 15 to 20 degrees,
Yeah.
which is several degrees warmer than it is in London. And when the sun shines, it's al fresco coffee and croissant in the morning, and lunch, and
Yeah.
on the beach in the sunshine. Take off your jacket and your jumper, and you're down to your t-shirt before you know what's happened.
That's right. But I'm curious to hear, Matt. Like you sound like you are really mastering entrepreneurship. Who was your role model growing up? Where did you get this from?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I think it's actually something that's inbuilt within us all.
Mm.
Hmm.
We have a creativity and an innovation, an ability to create and produce. And I think that spirit of enterprise, as I call it, is actually within every single one of us,
Hmm.
to greater or lesser degrees. And I think if you can name it and name yourself it and lean into it and exercise entrepreneurial habits,
Mm.
that spirit of enterprise will grow within you. So
Hmm.
I think it's something that everyone is born with and everyone can develop if they exercise it. It's like going to the gym, if you work those muscles, they'll grow.
I know that one of the dreams you have, one of your many dreams you have, is to put a writer in every home, basically, in every household. And I went into my kids' bedroom the other day and they were writing. And I said, "What are you writing?" "Oh, I'm writing my book, Dad." "What do you mean you're writing a book?" "Well, you've written yours, so we're writing ours now. And can you get it published?" And how do I? I'm like, "Well, you need to write more than 200 words to begin with, and then perhaps if it's not in crayon, but we'll work from there." So, but
Baby steps,
genuinely,
Aaron.
baby
Baby
steps,
steps.
yeah. Similar things to what Matt was saying to me. But yeah, I just that sense that if you get up every day and write 50 words, 100 words, you will write a book ultimately. Yeah, you need a bit of help and a bit of structure, but I love that making a little step every day into the direction of your dreams, and it's like going to the gym. If you go to the gym once, you're not going to be buff, right? You go every day for 2 years, 3 years, you're going to maybe see a little bit of progress.
Now, one thing I realize with entrepreneurs is there's a hunger, there's a drive, there's a work ethic. And sometimes we spoke on an earlier podcast that it can be within your own environment, very close to home, where you have that influence and there's role models that have really helped you find those tools. Is there anyone specific that comes to mind when you think about your life?
Yeah, my mum. My mum was a mumpreneur. You know, she there was nobody more entrepreneurial than my mum. You know, with the housekeeping she had, she made it go a long way. You know, the
Absolutely.
meals she cooked and what she did with what she had was amazing. I have friends who are entrepreneurs. They work inside big corporate organizations, bringing about change, bringing about innovation. Church leaders, often they're very entrepreneurial because they're planting churches or driving new initiatives in the community. Excuse me. So, you get pastorpreneurs. I think entrepreneurship can be applied to any profession. It comes back to attitude. Are we an agent or are we a victim? Victims accept there's no doors of opportunity for me at the moment, or they're not happening fast enough, or I'm employed and this is all I'm limited to. But agents say, actually, I am the agent of my own destiny. I can make choices every day which change and transform my prospects and the prospects of the people around me. And so I'm motivated. I mean, one of the things I do is I write books, as you mentioned earlier. I've authored over 20 books, and I still get a buzz every time I publish a book, which I do several times a year. But I get a bigger buzz now out of coaching other people. One of my students, he said, Matt, I thought I would never write a book, let alone in 100 days, and now I have. So I'm asking myself the question, what else have I told myself that I cannot do that I actually can? And so when we face a new challenge and we achieve it or overcome the obstacle, actually it builds our mindset and our attitude. Well, if I can do that, what else can I do that I once thought I never could? So, it's exercising the entrepreneurial muscles.
And Matt, dealing with people, it's one thing being an entrepreneur or an author. It's another thing getting everybody else to go in the direction you want them to go. Dealing with people who aren't perhaps doing it in a way you'd hoped, letting you down, couriers, for example. But I'm sure they've been in teams. I know you have lots of remote people, a lot of contractors, a lot of freelancers you work with. So if that's an even more difficult situation then, because you're not got any formal power, how do you motivate people? How do you influence people when you don't pay their wages? Do you see what I mean? When you're not their direct line manager and you're like, I need this, people are depending on this, my livelihood depends on this. What's the secret to motivating people?
Gosh, several things. One is it's actually for them to understand your true vision and purpose and motivation, because they can join you in that. I think that's the first thing. Second thing is, if people are no good, I stop paying them and end their contract. It's as simple as that. And whilst they may not be employed, people want to earn extra money or want to add to their portfolio. And there are times when I've had to let associates go because, first time, second time, fine, third time, three strikes, and I don't want to sound calculated and hard about it, but I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, so it's not first time and out. But there is a limit, because actually they're letting your clients and customers down.
Yes.
So there are times when you have to let people go. So I think firstly it's helping people understand your motivation and purpose. I think secondly it's structuring their engagement in a way that if they consistently underperform, then you can let them go. It's as simple as that.
What about other characteristics, attributes, qualities? What have you seen in others and what have you developed in yourself? The kind of characteristics that you think a good leader or entrepreneur in your case needs. If you're looking, maybe you're looking for the next you, what kind of 3 or 4 character traits or personal qualities do you think you'd look for?
Yeah, I think for me, the most important character trait in people that work with me is that they do what they say they're going to do. So for me, the people I work with, I look for consistency, faithfulness, people of their word, people who say that they're going to do, what they say they're going to do. And I like people who come with solutions and ideas. If you're going to spend your time moaning and complaining and grumbling, then again, I'm not. I want positive people with answers and solutions and ideas. I think that's really important.
And I think you're probably one of the most prolific networkers. I don't want to use that word because I know you don't like it, but you've got more friends probably, and their depth of relationships, their genuine friendships than a lot of people I know. And your name, I've been in various charities, and your name often comes up as, oh, Matt will know that person, or Matt's friends with that person. What is it that makes making friendships so easy for you? How have you done that?
Yeah, well, it didn't begin like that, because I remember growing up and the doorbell ringing at home and my father ushering my mum, my sister and I to hide behind the sofa and pretend nobody was home. The television on. Literally, we would hide behind the sofa and pretend nobody was there. I remember on one occasion being allowed a friend home from school. So it wasn't part of my upbringing. But as I began reading prolifically, I recognized that every self-made man and self-made woman was not actually self-made.
Yes.
They all had a mentor or an influencer or a person who opened up a first opportunity and then a bigger opportunity. So there's no such thing in my understanding of a self-made man or self-made woman. It's always teams, they're always relationships. And I was asked to speak at a business conference on the subject of networking. Now, I love speaking, but I hate networking. And I remember speaking to the organizer and say, look, I really hate networking. I find it contrived and manipulative and disingenuous and self-serving. And, I could go on. But he said, Matt, you're into people. I said, yeah, but that's, for me, networking is shallow, superficial. Relationships are authentic, high trust, long term. So they said, will you come and speak on that subject? I agreed. It's always bad to be defined by what you're not. So I thought, well, I'm not going to define myself as the anti-networking guy. What am I? And so I thought, well, relationships are a science because we can all learn to do them better. They're an art form because they take a lifetime to master. So I was thinking about the art and the science and study of relationships and thought, relationology. Googled it, couldn't find it, so trademarked it, bought the company, bought the web domain, and that's
trademarked the word. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Love that.
And I wrote a book called Relationology on how to grow a business through the power of relationships. But it's taken a long-term view of relationships. And what's really interesting, this far out of the pandemic, every week I'm still meeting someone who I haven't seen since before the pandemic. One of the key things in relationships is being deliberate and being intentional. So for some people, it's been a couple of years, I'll be too embarrassed to send them a message. Well, why not just send them a message and say, hey, Dave, as I did recently, I'm not seen you since before the pandemic. Do you fancy catching up? We get a coffee together, or Chris, do you fancy? Do you know what I mean? And things come out of those connections. It's just building for me, it's about building your relational ecosystem. So in my book, I talk about collecting, keeping, and growing relationships.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's true. There are so many ways to build your network. And I think when you talk about the way that you felt about networking, that's a very common fear that a lot of people have with my coaching work. I come across a lot of clients who do not want to network and they don't know how to network because of the reasons that you just described. But I think when you put in the words of relationships, that gives a very different framework in which to build and connect. So I think and collaborations. And there are so many ways you can network without networking, if that makes sense.
Well, I always say stop networking, start relationships.
Yes.
And if you're an introvert, I totally get it. Go to the party, go to the event, and just say beforehand, I want to have one meaningful conversation.
That's right. And it hasn't even got to be about a business topic. It can be about just a human conversation, people buying to people first and foremost, right? So that's where
just look for one meaningful, profound human connection and conversation. And if you do that at every event you go to, that's success.
That is. And talking of success, that's one thing we talk about in our podcast, the roadmap to success, with one of our favorite quotes by John C. Maxwell, there's no success without succession. You clearly have had a very interesting journey. It sounds like there's so much more to do as well. You have a very rich tapestry. When you think about a lasting impact, what do you see from your lens in terms of the world around you and your part within it?
Yeah, I do think succession is important, but it isn't essential with every initiative. For me, some things I start are for a season. I used to run a Dragon's Den style event for community charities.
Nice.
We always set ourselves a target of raising £1 million, and we hit the target and we wrapped it up. It was great. But other times you're building something that you want to last. I mean, NAYBA, we help churches love their neighbours better.
Hmm.
And we provide a way for churches to measure their current impact and celebrate that, to discern what else they should or could be doing in the community, and then choose from a menu of best practice options for sharing more love. And so, that pathway we've created, we're actually building in a very sustainable and scalable way. And that's, certainly one of my legacy pieces. And the other will be, PublishU. I'm coaching 100 people a year now to write and publish their books. And we're building it in such a way that ultimately it won't be dependent on me and can run without me.
Well, that's it. And there's so many ways that you can give back and have that impact. There's mentoring. We hear a lot about mentoring and training and coaching, as you talked about. So sharing your skills, sharing your knowledge, it's just planting the seeds. And like you say, look how many books will be in existence because of your course at PublishU. So I think you're doing some really good things there. Thank you for that.
We're having a go.
Yeah, and I myself, I've hugely benefited from Matt's mentoring and wisdom. I've done one of his mastermind groups. I went through the course for the book, and this podcast is partly a product of that course. And you have a way, Matt, of distilling what's needed to get the job done. So I remember you didn't overwhelm us with textbooks. You said, this is the worksheet for today. Let's talk about it. Go home and do it. And then by the time you've done it, you were ready for the next thing. And as you say, you kind of suddenly you're holding a book. It can take a time to write, but the steps to doing it, you make it seem so simple. As we come to lands, we do try and ask every guest, like if you were to, we've had a hologram and a time machine. So let's have a letter now. You write a letter to your younger self, and he's leaving home and he's finding his way in the world. And you just want to give him that piece of advice that will make the next however many years, decades, that little bit easier. What do you wish you'd known in terms of leadership? What lesson would you impart to your younger self?
Yeah. A few years ago, my mum gave me a pair of shoes, and I opened the box, and they were little, small, tiny shoes. And I took them out of the box, and one of them had a hole in the toe of the shoe where the child had kind of been learning to walk and had scuffed the end so much that there's a hole in it, And then she said, Matt, those were the pair of shoes you learned to walk in.
Okay.
And I have them on my studio desk, and they sit there. And I often look at them, and it just reminds me, and I wish I'd learned this earlier, that every step is important, no matter how faltering, no matter how many times you fall over. And it's just about getting up and having another go and learning and pushing forwards, because success ultimately is the sum of a lot of micro gains. So, and I've had a tough day today, but, I've made some steps forward. We just need to keep reminding ourselves that, we may not get to where we want to go to today, but if we take some small steps, they aggregate to create a huge advance over weeks and months and years. So I think, to my younger self, I'd just say, make lots of small steps and recognize their significance. Even if you fall over, learn from them, stand up and have another go. Don't hold back.
I love that. That ties into my favorite quote. And I mentioned this on other episodes, but the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, because when you look at 1,000 miles, it's a scary journey, but just one step at a time, and just keep the faith, and things just kind of come together in their own way, don't they?
Absolutely. So if you're listening right now, just be encouraged today. You may feel like you've had a bad day, but you've taken steps forward, and get up tomorrow and just say, what are the most important steps I can take today towards my destination? And, sometimes it's the steps that are as important as the destination. It
is.
The journey is important as the destination.
It is. And when you look back, sometimes that's when you see how far you've come. You might not feel it in the moment, but when you do turn around to look back, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I've come a longer way than I thought.
Absolutely.
But with all the many things that you do and all the fabulous hats that you wear, which one excites you the most?
I couldn't name one. I just love life. love
Hmm.
people, and love helping other people do things they didn't think they could do, whether it's helping a church serve their communities better, or helping a person write a book, or helping somebody have a great holiday in Sicily. I love creating
Hmm.
opportunities for other people.
I get that. It's very contagious. And especially when you see somebody who is doing it and who is excited by it, it just rubs off on the world around you. But in terms of what you're doing now, is there anything that we can support you on, where we can engage with you and maybe, follow your journey on whichever platform makes sense for you?
Yeah, I mean, if you want just a little intro to my small world, just go to Matt Bird Global.
Hmm.
MattBirdGlobal.com is the website. Matt Bird Global on Instagram, on Twitter, X, should I say, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Yeah, just go to Matt Bird Global and you'll find me. But I guess if you go anywhere, start with Instagram. That's my favorite way to connect with people. Send me a message. Let's connect.
Good to know. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for bringing us into your world.
Thank you, Matt. You are an inspiring guy, genuinely. You've helped me personally, and I know you do help hundreds, if not thousands of people through your books and through your various ventures. We're really thankful that you've made time to be with us today.
He was great. I can really relate to the entrepreneur thing and just owning the identity of being an entrepreneur. It takes a lot of courage to even call yourself that, especially when your name is your brand. I'm very aware of that. And, the fact that he has different worlds in which he operates,
Mm.
Sicily and London, and taking the best of both. There's a time for that pace and that urgency, and there's a time just to kind of sit back and let things come to you. So I think it was full of interesting stories. What about you? What stood out for you?
Yeah, I think, well, I actually thought it's really striking that it was only like 2 or 3 years ago in the pandemic that he said, "Oh, I'm ready to call myself an entrepreneur." Here's a guy
Mm,
who's already been successful in a number of different charities. He brings together, because I know from my own career, he brings together multimillionaires, he brings together charities, he births new initiatives, he actually births new charities. He's an incredibly innovative and successful person. But it was only a few years ago he was like, "I'm ready to own this name. I can be an entrepreneur now." Isn't it interesting that the people we look at have such success, and yet
mm.
inwardly they might not view themselves yet as having made it? So that was just an interesting takeaway for me.
Absolutely. If I didn't know that, I would never have guessed that about him because
Mm.
he seems like he's so seasoned and so comfortable in that role that that's quite a surprise. But yeah, it sounds like it's had a quite profound impact on your life. And it
Yeah, yeah.
shows.
I was just going to say to close really. So, the book that I've written, The Plain Parable, that was as a result of going through the course with Matt. So, not the content I came up with, but the structures and the habits and the disciplines and the tips,
Mm,
how you go from no book to having a book. That was absolutely Matt's inspiration and support that did that. So I can definitely testify to that working, and he does have a way of simplifying what could be quite complex processes. So while I'm on the book, do check it out. It's on Amazon, it's Kindle, it's out there as an audiobook if you prefer to listen to your books. And until next time, do make someday today.